What I'm showing you right now is when I went to go see one of my favorite informants of pretty much everything that exists on the planet, especially in the United States. The last American Vagabond, who I have on now with me. Thank you very much for being here. But I've got the picture up of when I went there and what it says. This account has been terminated for violating YouTube community guidelines. Oh my God, it's just nonstop. Anyway, we'll go over this and hopefully a few more things, but this was the cleansing tsunami from corporate elite is just insane. By the way, I have Stevie with Redneckonomics on here. Hello.
Hello.
She sits right across from me. She has her own channel, but I can't. I'm so big, I can't fit in the damn video. I can't fit in it. And I have the fantastic and wonderful Ryan Christian. Welcome, Ryan. Thank you for being here. How you doing?
I'm doing well, actually. It's a pleasure to be on. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So, just my biggest question that I had been thinking about for a while is knowing that there is devastation, knowing that your platform are the hours, the years of information, putting all that together, is the cleanup, I mean, the reconstruction process right now, is it painstaking? I mean, where are you at right now with all this?
Well, it's a good question because I think historically that's where we are used to hearing, like you go back so many years, YouTube it was much, less noticeable and discussed back then, but people just, left out in the open of no options, where now I personally have been seeing this coming for a long time, whether it's with our channel or other channels. And I've been planning for this. I've had people monitoring this stuff, people that there's more may come out in the very near future about stuff that I've been keeping track of, and just evidence of how wildly dishonest they've been with this back and forth, if at all. But I've been preparing. I have all my entire library backed up on library.com, which is just lbry.com, nice. As well as a lot of other blockchain-based platforms. BitChute has all my content and so on. So I've had a lot of this stuff saved and ready. And, I wasn't trying to make this happen. I wasn't doing anything that was flagrant. I was just not pulling back in conversations that they said we weren't allowed to have, because they're not allowed to do that, So I pushed into it, and I discussed legitimately things like the vaccine, showing studies and verbatim information from the CDC and the NIH, and that's just not allowable to them because I'm not supposed to be talking about that, So I kept doing it, and they finally just brought the hammer down, So I'm in a good place because I have everything saved, and I'm getting a lot of people are seeing this. It's causing a lot of momentum, which is good. And I'm just, honestly, when this first happened, I said, okay, now we can begin, right? This is the beginning. This is not the end of anything. This is the start of what needs to happen. And that's how it felt,
I got to say, your attitude about this is just amazing. I mean, you were on with Slow News Day the other day, and the first thing he says, he goes, I'm fucking pissed off, right? I mean, he's a cusser and a swearer like nobody's business.
Steve's a good guy.
He's amazing here in, is it Vanessa? Vanessa, really awesome, awesome show to watch. And I saw you on Croco too, Davey Croco.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, that was awesome. What's really important here for people to understand is, yes, people are now, it always takes one of our soldiers, in a sense, to fall, not completely, for us to finally say, oh my God, this is really happening. There's a movement now of uncensorship, going after the people or the communities or the social media platforms that are doing this continuously. And I mean, not that I'm a giant fan or any fan of Alex Jones, but I know that Ryan, Stevie, and all of us foresaw this. We foresaw that it was just a matter of time before they get you. If the narrative is not fitting their narrative or close to it, then they're going to take you down. I'm going to give you an example. It's still up, by the way. I put up a post about the side effects of methamphetamine, brain deterioration, depression, all this other stuff, right? A quick article, not an article, but a post on Facebook, and I took out the words methamphetamine and I entered the word COVID-19 or coronavirus, that's still up.
Hmm. Interesting.
Right? If
It,
it hits the
it,
narrative, then you're fine.
right.
As long as you're fear mongering.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. It's funny. It's just, it's so subject. It's totally up to them all the time. Right. And some people may even think that that makes sense, but these are not people that are supposed to be deciding what is allowable in a conversation. You know, the example I've been using all day is the one that the most glaring, obvious example of hypocrisy within, you're supposed to listen to the World Health Organization guidelines, is they keep saying that over and over and over, despite the fact that they seem to be constantly flipping back and forth between narratives and points and whatever. So you're just left just saying whatever they say today is what I have to listen to. But then one of the people on the board that's making these decisions for these guidelines on the World Health Organization speaks out and says, we shouldn't be doing lockdowns like this. This isn't how we should be doing this. And then they all attack him. Do we not realize how stupidly hypocritical that is, that they tell us you have to trust what they say, and the moment that they say something that the media doesn't like, the media attacks the World Health Organization? It's just like, it's painful how obvious it is that it's whatever narrative they want you to listen to. The thing I keep saying is they don't want you to trust the science. They want you to trust what they tell you the science is. That's it.
Perfect. That's what it. So whatever the narrative, whether it comes from the Vietnam War, whether it comes from weapons of mass destruction, whether it comes from Yemen, Syria now, the Falk Islands, just name it. Their narrative, and we always say they, but I like to connect that to the CE1s or the corporate elite 1%ers.
Or how about, I keep using the acronym, it's just the hierarchy enslaving you. That's what it is, right? It's just an overarching topic.
Yeah, they're just, and they know they're doing it. And I don't know if you can see my notes that I have on on Facebook that we're on right now, YouTube, and hopefully Periscope, which that works sometimes. But I'm clearly stating that there's an agenda, there's a mission, there's kind of a process that they've been using with manufacturer consent, and I mean the list goes on, and how they direct the masses into this. I mean, the fear that I'm seeing from COVID, the fear that I'm seeing from so many other things that they can just throw up and slap it on the screen, sticks. That's the part that really gets me, is how meek, malleable, and obedient we've become, not questioning authority.
Sad.
or the source at every turn, like you do.
Like we should be.
If there's anybody that does it better, it's freaking you. I'm telling.
Thank you. But it's incredible that is even like a unmentionable thing. That should be commonplace, that we question and ask and don't just blindly take the media at their word. It's just on its face, it doesn't make sense. I mean, we have to look at how they're, like you said, it's fear mongering. They're constantly screaming about how this is serious and cases are going up and all this is happening. But if you actually look at the overarching national numbers over months, it's continued to go down. Deaths, hospitalizations have continued to go down. And even the case numbers have continued to go down, short of little jumps here and there. And all they can do is focus in on specific parts. Let's look at this one county in this one state and be like, oh my gosh, the cases are spiking here. But the reality is they know that it's going down, and they're just pushing in the narrative that you need to be scared of this thing. And you add on to that the idea that the infection fatality rate, even according to the World Health Organization now, is right around the same as a flu. And they'll censor you for saying that, but that's literally what is on their website right now. It's incredible. It's almost hard to grasp when you can see it, the full picture.
The thing, like you're completely pointing out, and everybody needs to just understand this important part, is when I'm having a little challenge with somebody on Facebook or Twitter or something like that, which I do, it's kind of fun, but I'm just giving them information. I'm sending a video that you've done. My favorite one is about the PCR tests, Kerry Mullins and all that. He said that's not even created to detect for an isolated virus, which still is kind of up in the air.
It is.
But yes, yeah. But the whole thing is when I'm talking to people, what they come back with is the chain of command of information that's given to them. In other words, let's just say it's an official or somebody in a political position. The first thing they're going to do is they're going to reach into their magic grab bag and the Felix the cat bag, which is everything that's been handed to them down the chain of command. World Health Organization, CDC, NIH, NIH, and all these departments and facilities and organizations that are, most people don't know, are pretty much owned by Big Pharma and the CE ones, or what did you call them? The ones that
just the hierarchy enslaving you,
the corporate party. I don't think there's two parties. I think there's just one corporate party. And then Stevie wanted to say, yeah, sorry.
Oh, yeah. I mean, because right now we're in West Virginia, but he's got family out in California. So, it goes, you might.
Oh, sorry.
So out here, they aren't as strict. Like, people aren't really falling for it as much as they are out in California. A lot of people aren't wearing masks and things like that. But then out in California, everybody's obsessed, 10, feet apart, the, the whole 9 yards. But for some reason, the numbers and the statistics are the same. So how is it that, as careful as California is being right now, why are their numbers exactly the same as, us out here who just kind of are ignoring everything pretty much?
Right. Good point. And this is exactly what they don't want to discuss, right? It's sort of like the earlier discussion about, when the Vax movie came out and, vax versus unvax kind of thing. Like, there's an obvious way to find out, and they just don't want to do it, right? I mean, the best example is Sweden, which is one of the last videos I did before YouTube got all upset, right? Is that how in the world can you explain how, and we're even told that there are cases in Sweden, right? So that means it's present according to the narrative. So how then, if they're not locking down and not wearing masks and not requiring social distancing, is it not just tearing through the country and it's a complete disaster? Because that's what they want people to think. New York Times even wrote an article calling it a disaster, but you can look right now and you can see that the number, their deaths are right in line with every other year before it, that their cases are almost just completely dropping off the map, and that they are walking around normal today, right this moment, going to the restaurants and movies and walking up and down the streets. Like, they laugh at what everyone else is doing. There's no way you can say that makes sense within the narrative they're selling. Just simply doesn't. And then to your finer point, the differences in locations. And I think that's a really smart thing to think about, because like, even for instance, where I am, I love the town that I'm in, because most people here are thinking for themselves, and you see a lot of them not going along with it. But logically, based on what they're saying, if you have locations where it's not happening, where people aren't distancing and masking or locking down, you should then see a spike in numbers, and you're just simply not. Or at the very least, you're seeing the same. That's just unexplainable. I mean, I shouldn't say that. There's always something you could put in there, but no one's caring to address that. And that's just one of a long list of obvious red flags.
Yeah, and you can't question it. As soon as you question it, you're a conspiracy theorist.
Right.
That's what happens with James when he's on there talking to people on Facebook. He's just sharing information, and he goes, "Well, let me see your information. Let me see your research." He's open to any kind of information. But then it always comes down to, well, you're a stupid conspiracy theorist. You're a Trump supporter.
Ad hominems. Yep.
Yeah.
They immediately go at you, because the first thing you need to write down when someone does that is when you do not have an argument, is you attack someone's character, period. So you're not addressing the content of the argument. You're going, that's the equivalent of saying, well, here's the facts and the evidence. And they go, well, you're ugly. Right. That's what it is. Right. Except they try to make it a little more broad. Well, here's the thing about Trump or this and that. And it's an intellectually dishonest argument. And they know that. I can't hear you, James. I think you're on mute.
We got new microphones. I'm still trying to figure out how they work. But anyway, so I don't know if you've seen the movie Payback with Mel Gibson.
Yeah.
Not
I'm
a big fan of Mel Gibson. But
that's a good movie.
I mean, it's a good movie. There's a part in here, and I'm going to play it real quick. It's when he's talking to one of the kingpins, and I don't know if you'll be able to hear it. So I'll turn it up, so maybe you will.
If you describe it, I'll remember which clip you're talking about. I know that movie.
But I seem to have misplaced your name.
With
Porter.
one of the guys.
Porter, right. I won't forget it again.
Just let me see if
The outfit is not unreasonable, Porter. But no corporation in the world would agree to what you're asking.
What about Fairfax? Will he give me my money?
Resnick told you quite a bit, didn't he? Fairfax will tell you the same thing I have. We're not authorized to do things like that.
Who is? Who makes the decisions?
Well, a committee would make a decision in this case.
No. One man. You go high enough, you always come to one man. Who?
Play that again. I don't know if you can hear it. What he's talking to one of Fairfax's, the top kingpin. He's talking to one of his big guys, and he goes, like his second in line or second in command in regards to this mafia, organization that he's up against, just to get his $70,000 fucking dollars. And they keep saying it's 120, 130, 100. He goes, it's just $70 fucking thousand dollars. But anyway, so he gets to this one guy, and he goes, and he says,
one man. You go high enough, you always come to
you go
one man.
high enough, it always comes down to one man.
Totally.
Now, yeah. So I don't know if you remember that. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
That's
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Here's my question, and I think this is important to know. Is I know there's a lot of players at the Bilderberg, the G20, the G7, these little meetings, these at the golf courses, and these backroom deals. I mean, the list of places where these things happen, probably now on Zoom. Who fucking knows? But who, in your professional opinion, from all the research that you've studied, and I know you might have an idea of who or where who's pulling the string? Not those strings, but who do you believe or what? I'm just saying.
In regard to COVID-19 specifically, or just the broad?
I would say in regards to the general overall piece of COVID.
Right. It's kind of the same answer either way, but I mean, I do not think that it's as simple as saying it's this one person or this family or this entity. I just don't. And I think that now, to your point, if you're talking about something specific, like let's say you wanted to find out, who is in control of this one thing, you could probably trace that back to one entity or group that ultimately has the say or something like that, right? So that is correct. But I would say when you're talking about like just general control of the direction, the policies, and I think it comes down to sort of a multifaceted. I mean, that's the idea of like a deep state, a shadow government, right? It's unelected power structure. That's what it really is. And you got the families that we generally talk about. And I mean, it's not a conspiracy. I mean, the idea that you have families like the Rothschilds and Rockefellers that have been they're obviously a huge foundational part of the development of this country. I mean, from finances even to actual physical things, and yet they're oddly not mentioned in any history books. Things like that, or neither the Fed. We're not taught about the Federal Reserve. There's a reason these things are kept away from us. So it says something. But it's more than just that, right? I mean, especially as things evolve too. I would argue that we're just talking about entities like that. Powerful families, powerful corporations, shadowy like government agencies that have essentially become governments of their own. That is what it ultimately comes down to. And then I think that there is a collective of that where you may talk about things like Bilderberg or, the meetings that they have. And I think that there's an overarching goal, that they have like a direction in a general sense, but those things are constantly changing, even amongst them, because within that, each one of them have their own personal things. They want to make money today, or they want to sell this thing, or they want to have more control over this specific country. They all have it. And so it's like I think it's a fallacy to look at any given thing and think that it all ties back to the one same thing. I think that you could make a case for that, but not always. I know that's not what people want to hear necessarily, because it's like we want to have one guy that we can just take down.
I thought you had a name.
But at the end of the day, I could name off all kinds of people that I think are guilty and corrupt and part of the problem, but I think we just all need to begin to see that it's not like here's the best way to put it. I don't think one person is going to be the one person to stop to save everything. I also don't think that there's going to be one person that we could look to answer all of our problems. And that's one of the things we have in regard to politics that is the problem today. Whether you support Trump or Biden or Johannesson or anybody, no, I don't think any one of them is going to be the answer to what we're trying to do. And that's, I am trying to get people to think outside the box in regard to our voting system in general. And that's really difficult today. But we just have to see how we're in this rigmarole that is just the same old thing over and over and over. More promises and more back and forth. Two parties are the same at this point. 44% of Americans register as independent, and yet we only have two parties every year. Think about what that means,
I mean, regardless of how it all got started, there's a bunch of different factions trying to profit from it.
Totally.
So whenever they see chaos, whenever they see a disaster, they're all these different factions are jumping in to profit from it. I mean, you've got the deep state, you've got corporations, in these trying times, all these ads that you see, in these trying times, we're here, we care. That's that. But everybody has their own agenda. But it does. But it started somewhere. Like it started with a person, planning or what have you.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. That you have to at some point, and whether it could have been a collective decision around the table or one individual, it definitely started somewhere. And I think that goes back to these kind of same agendas we're talking about. And I wouldn't argue that it has to do with, let's say, like for instance, you go back before we were technologically advanced as we were now. They were still trying to figure out how to make people more passive, how to control people easier, how to influence their decisions better. That's why we have things like the internet and TV. They developed in these veins, but they were also in a way taken away from them, like the internet, I argue, which was a DARPA project. And I think this was the plan. This was made for the purposes that we're seeing pushed into it today, but it didn't work out the way they planned, I argue, right? I mean, we kind of harnessed it and used it for our own benefits. And that's how we have to see these things, But COVID-19, for instance, I definitely think that there's a plan here. I mean, there is an agenda playing out. And I do believe that it wasn't just something that was capitalized on. I definitely believe, like you're saying, that this was a decision that was made. I mean, that's my opinion, but I definitely feel that way.
I mean, well, they keep calling it the new 9/11, right?
Right. Or just the new normal or anything, right? Yeah.
They took away our rights. They fear-mongered. Look what happened to anybody that went against the narrative of 9/11,
right,
that questioned anything, that said we shouldn't be going to war with these countries. They were, they were disappeared. If they were on mainstream media, they were out of a job. Even if, like Chris Hedges, he became a social pariah.
Jesse Ventura.
Anybody that questions the narrative, like what they did to you, they gave you the Alex Jones treatment. They just wiped you from the internet.
Right.
And for what? For presenting information, asking questions. It's very scary. And the thing with you is like, Alex Jones is, he's out there. A lot of people don't agree with what he's saying, but when it hits close to home, it's getting closer and closer to home with the journalists and the reporters that we're seeing, being wiped from the internet.
I just think that it shouldn't, to the point you're making there, it shouldn't matter, right? I mean, I have a lot of opinions about Alex Jones, but it just doesn't matter, right? The point is that you should, or even, for instance, I have talked a lot about QAnon and that whole discussion. And I think it's actually a very dangerous thing, and not because because of the way that it's driving people to simply trust the government. And that's my opinion. I know people think differently, but I will argue to the death that these people shouldn't be censored, because you have every single right to express these opinions. I mean, look, we have a right to go out. It doesn't have to be sourced and factual and proven and aligned with the World Health Organization. We have every right to stand up and scream about the craziest thing we could possibly fathom. And they're telling us today that some of those things are just dangerous because it puts people at risk. I mean, it's the same kind of thing that happens with hate speech idea. And I think that was almost like a testing the waters for this kind of thing, right? That it went from, well, we have laws in the books, right? You can't go up and just assault somebody or kill somebody, right? That's a crime. But then they start to say, well, this speech leads to those crimes. So, now we need to be careful about that speech. And then all of a sudden, free speech went away because, now there's caveats. And it's the same thing they're doing now with constitutional rights, right? It's not that you have these up until fear. They're not allowed to be manipulated, and they're just doing it anyway. We have to be able to see the correlations with all this stuff. So it's an excellent point.
The whole Mike thing. The thing that I find kind of bad for us as a society, a U.S. voting republic, is the conversation. Like you're saying, it's like we can't even just talk about it. We can't. I actually saw Proud Boys talking to a progressive, and they were actually having a conversation. And I saw somebody in progressive social media just pull away. It wasn't exciting enough. It didn't fit the narrative, or whatever the case may be. They were having a civil discussion about things. And this is something that it is exactly what they want us to do. I feel divide and conquer. I mean, that's the oldest fucking trick in the book, but it's
Oh, yeah.
it's something that I truly believe they've been doing for a long time, and they've been very successful at it. On the other hand, they put us against each other. Oh, you're not wearing a mask. You're wearing a mask. You're not wearing a mask. You asshole. You fuck you. Da, da, da. And it just continues and continues and continues. The thing that bothers me the most is if like you said earlier, if you don't like what I'm talking about, and if it offends you or something like that, then maybe I'm not saying something to you that is fitting what you have implanted in a narrative. And this is what it's not their fault. Millions and billions of dollars, Harvard graduates, marketing, advertising, gigantic conglomerate firms that are putting out money and these guys are gurus at branding, logo, marketing. It's just amazing.
Social engineering.
I don't get mad at them. I just say, hey, it's not your fault. It's not your fault, because I understand. I was in that business. Round is nice, square is bad. Red is red. That's why most places that you eat at have either a dark red or red, because it makes you hungry. It's like internal. There's so many things that they do out there to curb thinking, maneuver people, manage, and hurt us in a particular direction. So the thing is we've got to come together. We've got to start doing something. By the way, I have voteheard.org. I want people to be able to write your vote in. Check it out sometime. The other thing is with all this happening, I just want to leave you with this last question real quick.
Go ahead.
Okay, this last question. Journalism itself, freedom of speech. Where do you see this going?
Yeah, that's the kind of the one of the main, I guess, things that are being decided by the direction of where this is all going, and we have, what's even more alarming is it's like, what's going on with Assange should be a wildly important, and it is in the independent media, but it's obviously, they weren't talking about it before all this. And now that's all going on. It's like, it's just not even in existence. And so that was in and of itself. And I always add the caveat there that whether or not you think Assange is CIA shill or working for Israel or any of the other narratives that are out there, it really ultimately doesn't even matter at this point in regard to this conversation, because whether or not that's the case, they're still using him to achieve what they're doing. They're taking away from us. I believe Assange is a hero fighting for what we're doing and putting out the information, but it doesn't matter anymore because he's still going to be abused and they're still going to use that scenario to pull your rights away, So now we're in a situation with COVID-19 where they're literally justifying, if we allow this to continue, the precedent's been set, which is really alarming, but they're making the case where your rights are like a light switch, that they can just simply turn it off and on depending on when they decide it's necessary. And that shouldn't have allowed to get out of the gates, right? People they fear-mongered enough to get them so afraid that they were willing to. And that goes back to that old quote that I probably will say wrong, but safety for liberty, right? You deserve neither is the point. You need to fight for these things. So where we are now and where I think it's going, I think that this is a battle for our lives. I feel this is an end game. And I feel it in my bones. I could be wrong about that, but I swear, there's so many things that don't make sense about the way they did this, how quickly they're rolling it out, the fact that they don't seem to care, that it's so more obvious than I've ever seen in my life that they're being dishonest about this. So I think they're pushing it in for a reason before they should be. And so I think we need to stand up for this right now. And I never advocate violence. I just don't believe that's the direction we should go. I think violence begets violence. Doesn't mean there's not times when it's necessary, but I don't think that's the path we should choose, but we need to stand up right now and make everything about this. Everything, right? People can't feed their families. They don't have their jobs. Their business have been destroyed. We're bailing out massive multi-billion-dollar corporations with your money. Now is the time, guys. And journalism is where this is going to die if we don't allow it to continue. We need to fight for independent voices. I think we need to do things like hashtag boycott YouTube and just literally stop allowing them to control the message, At the end of the day, I'm going to keep fighting no matter what. Even if I knew that we would lose, I would still fight until the end anyway, because what else are we going to do? We need to keep fighting at this at every single step. And I think what we need to see more than anything is having individuals vote with their dollar, right? Vote with their voice, not writing your checking a box or putting this thing in a ballot doesn't ultimately achieve anything, in my opinion. Your money is the only thing I think they really care about at the end of the day. So make that case, you know?
Exactly. That's the reason why they do everything that they do. It always comes down to the value of their stocks and the money in their offshore bank accounts. That's the only thing that influences their decisions.
I agree.
Our opinions, the popularity of those opinions, it does not matter to them. There's no pressure. I mean, when you shut down, when you quit giving them your labor and your money, that's when things change. So I had one last question for you, and that was, so do you have any advice for for anybody out there or content creators, anybody that's, seeing this and saying, hey, this is messed up, what would you say to them, seeing as you've just gone through it yourself?
Well, I think right now we need to realize that it's not about one platform or the other, right? We need this everywhere. You need to go out there and put your content everywhere you possibly can, right? I mean, I get the idea of having a focus and everything, but I think the field is changing in regard to where we are in this and the streaming and everything, right? That now it's the news has even changed, right? Even the mainstream media recognizes that they need to be in on what we are doing. And that's why they're trying to take it from us, so we just need to get your content is everywhere you possibly can, multiple social media platforms. So when they pull one away, like YouTube, that you're not left going, where do I go now? Right. We have all the other places that we can meet up and talk and share information. And we need to start using, blockchain based concepts, things that are privacy forward, they allow us to have these kind of conversations that can't be censored, that can't, that actually protect your privacy. And as an actual content creator, I would argue that you need to stay the course regardless of the repercussions. You need to continue to speak what is true, regardless of what they're going to try to do to you. Because the moment you start self-censoring and reducing and watering down your message to allow yourself to be on their control platform, you've already lost. And I get why some people do it. I get, some people have more that can't just allow them to destroy your entire thing and keep moving forward because they've got a family and bills and, whatever else. I get it, but it doesn't mean that I still disagree with the action. Now is the time at all costs, in my opinion.
Thank you for coming on. Thank you for being my reminder of my microphone as well. It's this guy right here. We just got him, and for us to be able to do what we do, I got to push the mic. It's too much technology for me. But anyway, so the thing is I am truly going to do whatever I can to tell everyone it's time to get on the streets. I mean, whether you think so or not, and come together on this. You need to make sure at any cost your freedom of speech and your ability to come together is being stripped. I mean, if you can't see it, it's happening right now. Social distancing, don't get close to each other, right? The only people that can actually talk to each other, I guess, are people on Zoom. So anyway, we need to get out there. Go ahead.
Let me add real quick before we end that I hope everyone should look into what they just said about the Christmas rules for California. It's horrifying. For Christmas. I think it's going to backfire on them, actually, because they're talking about like no more than a certain amount of people, and you have to be distanced, and if you want to sing, you have to do it under your breath, and it's
Thanksgiving, and Fossey was saying cancel Thanksgiving. This is insanity, people. I mean, look behind me. We've got people in stands that are made out of fucking cardboard, for God's sakes. Anyway, listen, I know you're pressed for time. You got a lot of stuff going on. You're super busy. I'm going to keep posting your information. I'm going to, by the way, Last American Vagabond, thelast.americanvagabond.com. Go to his website right now. You also have a backup channel. Anything about Twitter going to happen? And you still have your Facebook, right?
Yeah, for the time being. Yeah.
Okay, I know, right? So far, so good. Okay, but anyway, I want to say thank you to everybody for coming on. Aloha to everybody. Mahalo to you, especially Ryan. Good luck to you. I'll stay in touch with you, sir. Take care.